It's time for another episode of Locked On Utah Hockey Club, the podcast. Tom Callahan, Robyn Leano here with you. We have plenty to get to on today's show. The Utah Hockey Club is going to feature prominently on national TV broadcasts this year. We'll tell you how many. We'll also tell you that the NHL.com website has revealed its Super 16 NHL goalies. Is there a Connor Ingram sighting? We'll talk about that. Plus, we're going to project the Four Nations Faceoff Canada goaltending situation as well, because once again, Connor Ingram could be involved with that. All that and more coming your way right here on Locked On Utah Hockey Club.
You are Locked On Utah Hockey Club, your daily podcast on the Utah Hockey Club, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for joining us, everybody, and making us your first listen every single day when it comes to the Utah Hockey Club. Tom Callahan, Robyn Leano here with you. Plenty for us to talk about. Robyn, we're creeping up on September, and number one, I can't believe that already. We are inside of 30 days to start training camp to see our first exhibition games. It's here. We are almost ready to go at this point.
It is absolutely amazing. You think about it. Let's go back in time a little bit to in June. We were counting down for the draft. We were talking about how close it was until the season started, and even then, we're like, man, it just feels like it's so close, and it just that the amount of time that has passed, it feels like no time has passed at all, and we're like, oh my God, it's coming right up here. It is right up now. We're like just right in our faces. Like, hello.
Also, mission critical. We are inside a month to Tom's birthday. So shop early, shop often, send all gifts, money, cards, whatever, whatever you think I deserve, and then add some more to that. So very excited for that. But now, we've talked about the fall being a great time of year because now the prognostications are kicking it into gear, because in a couple of weeks, we're going to see all the faces we've been talking about all summer. And, the NHL has some interesting things going on. And of course, the Four Nations Faceoff, we're going to talk about that in a little bit as well. But one of the cool things this year, Robyn, that you had pointed out to me beforehand, and we were discussing this, last year as the Arizona Coyotes, this team did not feature prominently in the national TV spotlight. But now with a move to Utah, with new ownership, there is a buzz around this franchise, and that's going to translate into national eyeballs.
It really is. And from what I saw on in a public post for a public release saying Utah Hockey Club will be featured in 7 national broadcasts this year, Tom, whether it's on ESPN or on TNT. Any of the networks that they provide. And again, that's a huge upgrade from what Arizona had in its last year. And we talked about it, right? We talked about some of the things involved about going all through that, a lot of it being a shiny new toy. But here's the cool thing about it is this is essentially mostly the same team what the Arizona Coyotes were, but no one really knew what they were. And even in that first half of the year, when the Coyotes were going through that insane run, they looked like they could potentially might have been a playoff team for a very, very brief moment, but no one cared. No one cared because they weren't on national TV. Now, Utah Hockey Club is going to get that opportunity, and they're really going to get a chance to really show themselves and be like, hey, this is who we are.
It's exciting from the standpoint of an up-and-coming hockey team that, let's face it, this team, we're projecting them to really be a player in the Western Conference race here in a couple of years going forward. Now, I understand Nashville is going to be on there a lot from the West. Yeah. Colorado, Dallas, those teams make sense. I get it. Vegas, they're going to show those teams. But the fact that Utah kind of elbowing their way into the conversation here, that's an exciting thing. That shows you're a team on the rise.
All right, so here are just to give a heads up to everybody, these are the games that will be featured. So if you kind of mark on your calendars to know where, when, and where they are going to be broadcast on. So on October 8th, so that's opening night for the Utah Hockey Club, opening night for the NHL as well. That will be on ESPN and ESPN Plus, and then followed by December 10th. Minnesota at Utah on ESPN Plus and Hulu. So that's one of the Hulu games. December 27th, so right after the Christmas break. Colorado at Utah on ESPN2. January 8th, Florida at Utah on TNT, True TV, and Max. January 23rd, Utah at Minnesota. So another Minnesota game on ESPN Plus and Hulu. Pittsburgh at Utah on the 29th of January on TNT, True TV, and Max. And March 12th, Anaheim at Utah on TNT, True TV, and Max.
And Robyn, the interesting thing about that is we're kind of talking about the games, the opponents. I'm a little surprised there's a couple Minnesotas in there. There's an Anaheim in there. We were actually talking before we started taping the show about how Anaheim has fallen off. Maybe you're hoping that game late in the season, and the reason you pick Anaheim and Utah is you're hoping there's some relevancy there, I think. You're hoping that perhaps one of those two teams, if not both, are fighting for a wild card spot at that point. And March 12th is far enough out where you will definitely know that information. So that's kind of an interesting one to me. Of course, the opener against the Chicago Blackhawks, that's a no-brainer.
Of course.
You want to be in the building for opening night and show everybody what all the buzz is about. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, if you're not one of the lucky people that actually get tickets, because we already know that's costing a lot of you guys an arm and a leg. Which is why we talked about maybe potentially getting a pre and post game show or whatever it could be.
Yeah,
that'd be really cool to see if we can get that done. But that's definitely for sure. And again, like you mentioned, Tom, and I said how there's a couple of those Minnesotas put in there. I don't think that surprised me at all. I think there's certainly something to be said. One, we're talking about a divisional matchup here. So two teams in the same division. There's going to be some kind of heat to that. In addition to that, I firmly believe, Tom, that these two teams could probably be very similar in where they might be in the divisional race. So I think that's where the heat's going to come from. It's like, all right, let's see who's going to finish above each other in this point in the standings. Come at that point when they face each other. Are they going to be really close? Is Utah going to have a huge step up, or is Minnesota going to have a huge step up? Where is it going to be? And I think that might kind of fuel a little bit of fire going into those games.
I think so. I think you're right. And you know what? No matter what happens, no matter how Utah starts, no matter how Utah finishes, there's going to be that intrigue around them all season long. How are they going to be doing at any point in time? Who's performing? Who's picking it up? Are we looking at rookies making an impact with this team? I think that's something, and maybe that's a good topic for a future podcast, is Utah Hockey Club one of those teams where rookies are going to have a big splash on this roster? Or is it going to be players that we've seen before, just albeit in a different jersey? So I think that the national spotlight is great. I love the fact that they're getting the notice. I love the fact that, these young players, this team on the rise. 7 is just the start. But this is a good start for this Utah Hockey Club. I feel like they're really on a very good path right now. So, and hey, national TV dates don't hurt.
Yeah, no, they certainly don't hurt at all. And I think the thing that there still will be probably a lot of still hates, because there's either you might be a remnant of a team that hated the Coyotes and you're still for some reason you just want to make fun of Utah Hockey Club because they don't have a real name yet, or whatever other reason you want to give them the hate for. Because again, as the other joke that Ryan Smith said during the draft, we haven't done anything yet.
Right.
And again, unless you are a former Arizona Coyotes fan and decided not to jump shit because you are very upset, which again, I completely understand if you are one of those people.
Yes, absolutely. When we don't blame you, but if you're listening to us, I see you out there.
Yeah, and we hope you guys continue to stay along with us as we introduce hockey to a whole new market, as we help bring the whole fan base and get everybody ready for hockey in Utah. And I think a lot of you guys are excited for it. And again, I'm excited to be here and be that voice for you Utah hockey fans. All right. But that said, I think that's going to be it to talk about that specific spot. We'll obviously talk more about what's going on in the national spotlight and what Utah is going with some of the TV broadcasts. We'll tee you guys up ready for those when those games come along. But what we're going to do is we are going to keep talking on this episode of Locked On Utah Hockey Club. We're going to take a look and get some goalie talk. We're going to obviously we're going to check that projecting the Four Nations Faceoff for the Canada goalie. Is Connor Ingram involved? Plus, NHL.com reveals their Super 16 NHL goalies in their power rankings. We'll get to that right after this. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You've heard us talk about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little bit different for you. Now, through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Once again, a $5 bet, and you get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon at a market game. All you need is a Google account from a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. Just visit fanduel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. So let's keep things going on this episode of Locked On Utah Hockey Club. Robyn Leonio and Tom Callahan. We're finished talking a little bit about that national spotlight, national TV broadcast for Utah. But Tom, let's get to a little bit of goalie talk.
Never hurts my feelings. I always enjoy talking about the pad men. So, I'm looking forward to this. It's a couple of things that we can get to. The Four Nations tournament that's coming up could involve some Utah Hockey Club speculation, but the NHL.com list I think was interesting. The Super 16, they call it, basically the top 16 or the top half of NHL starting goaltenders. There were some votes for Connor Ingram, but he did not make the list. So the highest I think I saw him, Tom Gulitti had him 12th. I think he got a couple other votes, either 15 or 16. So clearly on the radar of some of the national pundits, not for everybody. There was an interesting mix, I'll be honest with you, in everybody's bottom 5. There was, spin the roulette wheel and you're going to end up with some goalies on there. Joey Decord got some love. Some of the other Maltembo got some love. Right now, I think it's a product of even John Gibson got a vote. And I love John Gibson. I am a big John Gibson fan. I just think he's stuck on a bad team.
Yeah.
And I wish they would have traded him 2 years ago because he probably would have a Stanley Cup by now. But that said, right now, this shows you everything is in an emergence for this Utah Hockey Club. And the goaltending is no exception. But Connor Ingram, I think, put himself on the radar for some people last year. I think this year is the next step where he hits, I'm going to say, everybody's radar this year, if he takes that next step forward. Now, of course, we've talked about the expected competition between him and Karel Vejmelka, which absolutely needs to be there because Vejmelka, this is a contract year for him, so I expect him to have an incredible season and push for that starting job.
Sure.
But for me, the eyeballs are firmly on Connor Ingram to see if he can become a legitimate starting goaltender. And the other thing this does, Robyn, I'm going to harken back. This is months ago. We talked about it as I almost knocked my water over. We talked about it months ago where I kind of took some heat for saying that I didn't think Connor Ingram was there yet. I didn't think he was a bona fide #1, get your team to the playoffs goaltender.
Yeah.
This kind of backs me up. Now, I'm not saying he can't be that guy, but he hasn't shown it just yet.
No, you're absolutely right. And I feel like that's something I think people need to remember is that there's still, Ingram is still coming from from an Arizona team that struggled, and he kind of had him kind of bear the load a lot because I feel like he had to work extra hard, but only could do so much, right? He's still a really young goalie and still had a lot ahead of him. It's like, okay, there still needs to be a little bit of development here, but you are good for what we have right now. But again, he's only getting better. He's consistently gotten better every single season with the Arizona Coyotes, and I fully expect him to get better in this next season with the Utah Hockey Club. I firmly believe too that again he will get that. He'll get that extra look, and he'll probably break in. Get that true starter feel to him, and again that maybe solidify himself. We already know he's a 1A, but solidify him around that. Again, I still think we're a long way from a true 1-2 situation, but he will solidify as a really, really solid 1A and a solid starting goaltender for the Utah Hockey Club.
Well, he's a Utah Hockey Club 1A. Now
Yes.
I want him to become an NHL 1A.
Yes.
And that will coincide with the rise of the team.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That certainly makes sense, right? And this team has slowly been getting better as well. Right? You take a look at where they were just a couple of seasons ago, right? Like 2 seasons ago, 3 seasons ago, where they were at the bottom. This team was just downright bad. And even and they even slowly got better from there. And again, the Shane what at the time was called the Shane Wright stakes. Go figure. Shane Wright ended up falling even below where the Coyotes picked, but
Right.
but that year draft, everyone was like, "Ooh, the Coyotes going to try to drop down that low and really, really tank their year to see if see how bad they can get." And that team was probably one of the worst Coyotes teams I've seen in at least the last decade. And it got pretty low. It's been getting significantly better since then. They have made and again, Utah is going to make so many extra strides this year based off just the moves that Bill Armstrong has made this offseason alone.
The fact that the defense is completely reworked will be the most interesting thing as far as how it relates to helping or hindering the goaltending. If these Utah Hockey Club D-men are conscious in their own end, they take care of things, realize that, when you bottle up the opportunities, and defense is a 5-man proposition. It's not just the defenseman. The goaltender is not just responsible for the saves. It's a team proposition.
Yeah.
But if they're able to take care of things, if they block shots, if they take away the lanes, if they do all the things they're supposed to do, be defensively responsible, and then force those turnovers, you're going to get more chances in transition and on offense. But that is the key to being able to make your goaltenders look really good. And so I think that, depending on how the chemistry goes, and that's the biggest question.
Yep.
If the chemistry is there, if they have even, 4 of the 6 defensemen that play well together, I think that bodes really, really well for this team.
Yep. Obviously, it's like whatever is said out loud is going to be a whole different situation. But truly, in the actual goaltender's mind, and again, we can't really get in their mind, but we're saying this as a whole hypothetical and as a whole thought process here, Tom, is Connor Ingram. I think in order to help him get to that next level and help him get to get into that next maybe Super 16, whenever that might happen, it kind of goes hand in hand where that defense we talked about, that new revamped defense, needs to trust Connor Ingram to do his job. But at the same time, Connor Ingram needs to trust the defense. No hesitancy on either side. Because if there's a little bit of hesitancy, especially on the goaltender hesitancy, is a little bit hesitant on what your defense is capable of, that can affect you.
Yeah, absolutely it can, and it will. And I mean, when it comes down to what the team's capable of will be multiplied if they're able to go ahead and play defense really well, because that wins you cups. It doesn't just win you playoff series, it can win you cups. Mm-hmm. So if you take care of your own end, you will end up with the puck. You will have better possession numbers. And then it's up to you to translate that offensively. And I think Utah Hockey Club has the weapons up front to be able to do that. So Connor Ingram, not in the top 16, but I think poised for a breakout season in which next year when this list comes out, he's on it.
Oh, certainly. I would certainly think at this point next year, I'd have a decent level of confidence that he will be on it at this point. But that said, Tom, with the Four Nations Faceoff coming up, can Ingram maybe break a starting role over there for Team Canada? We'll talk about that right after this.
And this episode is brought to you in part by Game Time. Boy, Robyn talks about it. I haven't had a chance to, but I'm going to now. How much I love going to live events, and not just sporting events. I love going to concerts. I'm a huge I've seen hundreds, literally hundreds of concerts. I love going to see musicals, plays. Live comedy is an awful lot of fun. I love it. And Game Time is not just for games. It's shows, it's events, it's all that. And they've got a new feature called Game Time Picks. It makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. It filters out the fluff and the crap so that you only see the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time by searching through thousands of tickets. Check this out. Game Time's got a 50% off Labor Day offer for the Diamondbacks Dodgers series coming up, which is incredible for baseball fans. I mean, Diamondbacks Dodgers, if you root for either one of those teams, you know what that rivalry is like. That's going to be fantastic. So, Tom, how can I take advantage of this? Well, here's what you can do. A couple of things. First of all, I highly recommend you toggle on the all-in pricing feature. It's not on by default, but when you put that on, it shows you the total up front. So you know what you're paying. There's no surprise fees at checkout. You do have to enable this. So again, I recommend turn on all-in pricing. Here's the other thing. You get priority with Game Time Picks. Now, you can curate what you want to see, and it makes it much easier to see the sports, the concerts, the comedy tours, the theater, the shows you want to go see. So use that curation tool because it really cuts everything down. I love knowing what my seat's going to look like before I buy it, so I can tell if I really want to be there, if I like that corner or that sideline or halfway up or where I want to be. They get panoramic views from the seat, so you know what it is before you buy. And the lowest price guarantee or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. They also have Game Time ticket coverage, your purchase covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create your account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL. That's LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time.
So this now comes up, Tom, as a request from he's one of our Insider Text Club members, but he mentioned this on Twitter. He took a look at so this is Caden I'm talking about. So Caden, if you're listening to this, we took this suggestion from you, and we're running with it. There was a projection, or potentially it was a question from I think it was like NHL's Twitter profile. It's like, all right, who's going to be the starting goaltender for Team Canada in the upcoming Four Nations Faceoff? One of the names on that specific post was Connor Ingram. Kind of definitely could, for some, be a little bit of an eyebrow raiser, especially after what we just talked about, Tom, but certainly still worth a conversation.
Well, and I checked into Robyn before the show. I went to a bunch of websites, looked at their projected goaltending lineups. Some of them went as far as 3 deep. On the ones that did go 3 deep, we saw a little bit of Connor Ingram. And I don't think that's out of place. I don't think it's out of touch, especially because, again, we're expecting him to have a big season this year, to take a step forward this year. The guys in front of him, you've got Adin Hill, which, I mean, Stanley Cup ring speaks for itself.
Yeah.
Stuart Skinner, fresh off a tremendous playoff run. So that's a big one right there. And I think those are going to be probably 2 of the hardest guys to beat out, because you have a pedigree, even though, and certainly Arizona fans know Adin Hill, having been a member of this Coyotes organization. So you've seen Adin Hill play, but that Stanley Cup carries some weight with it, and then carrying your team in a run to the Stanley Cup final, even though there were times last year where Stuart Skinner, maybe it was a little dicey. But now the question is, and it certainly begs to be asked, who are the remaining best Canadian goaltenders? And can Connor Ingram come in at number 3 on that list?
It certainly is a question, and it's definitely one that I feel like bears a lot of thinking that has to be done, because there are a lot of other pretty decent Canadian goaltenders out there who certainly can get that, can get that kind of a look. And I'm trying to see if I can.
Tristan Jarry is one of the guys that I saw mentioned. I'll be honest with you, I don't see a world where Tristan Jarry makes that team. No. I know he was picked by a couple of different. Well, okay, I do see a world where it happens. However, I would be surprised because I don't think he's played well enough to really merit that consideration. As a matter of fact, the place that did pick Connor Ingram was NHL.com. But you know what? I don't know. I don't know if I'm getting behind that one or not. That's a tough one for me to not Connor Ingram, Tristan Jarry. I just don't know that I can say, Tristan Jarry should be the guy there. And Sam Maltambo from the Canadiens, who I think is actually a very good young up and coming goaltender, but just again, kind of on a kind of team. The Canadiens have struggled. So he's another guy that gets a mention there. And then
this NHL post, so this from on Twitter or X, that Caden tagged us in, also had 4 names, and you already mentioned the 3 that we've already talked about in Hill, Skinner, and Ingram, but also Jordan Binnington was on there, and that kind of made me think about it. I mean, yes, he's a good goaltender.
Streaky.
Yeah, I'm like, I just don't know if, like, especially to represent the country like that. Like, I just don't know.
So really, I think we're looking at, and don't forget Logan Thompson, who I've always thought is a stud. I love Logan Thompson. Huge Logan Thompson fan. He could be in that mix as well, along with Ingram, Skinner, Jarry, Hill. And it's like Jarry is, it's weird to say, but Jarry is a veteran now. I think if you want to go with veteran presence, Binnington's got a cup, but because he is so mercurial, I'm not sure he's your pick.
Right.
Some of you out there might be saying, what about Marc-Andre Fleury? There's no guarantee he's going to be here by the time Four Nations comes around.
No.
So I think that, Jarry is going to be hit or miss for me because I don't think the Penguins are going to be as good again this year. I think they're going to struggle to try to make a wild card spot. Binnington is going to be up and down. Logan Thompson's going to be a big question for me. He could have a resurgent year in Washington now that he's out from behind Hill. But honestly, I don't see why Connor Ingram doesn't nab that third spot.
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially since a lot of the other like top goalies out there are, Finnish or Czech or somewhere else in the country. So as we mentioned, he's not like right now, Ingram isn't one of the top 16, as we mentioned in the last segment. But certainly among Canadian goaltenders can certainly warrant a look, especially on a 3 deep, on a 3 deep depth chart here. But that's the thing, because here's the thing with where this original post said, who should the starting goaltender be? I don't see a scenario in which Ingram is like a starting goaltender. He won't get the majority of the load in the Four Nations Faceoff.
No,
I just can't see that being the case. I would love to see a world in which he does get a better look. But again, in a 3 deep, he's going to be that third man.
Well, and that's the thing is it's a quick tournament. It's 4 teams, and it's going to be a fast round robin over the weekend. I don't think you're going to see, well, not over the weekend, but within the space of a week, you're basically going to hurry up and play a round robin tournament. I don't think he gets in. He might dress. He might back up.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't know that right now, what we know about who we know it about, I don't think you're starting him over Stuart Skinner or Aiden Hill.
No, especially since those two have had that Stanley Cup playoff experience and deep runs, especially, one, as you mentioned, a Stanley Cup champion, and the other one is Stanley Cup runner-up.
Right. And again, Binnington's got a ring too. So really,
that too.
He could make the squad as the third just on that alone.
And sometimes that's what they decide to do. That's what they decide to go down. It's like, yeah, I think that seems fair.
Championship experience does count. It matters.
It really does. So, as much as I love to see Ingram there, like, it's just, I mean, maybe, like I said, maybe he will dress, maybe he will be a backup, but I just can't see him truly maybe like starting in a game.
And the other thing is too, you can't project what kind of performance you're going to see out of any of those guys.
Yeah. And here's one more thing I'll add too. Also, I don't necessarily know what the coach wants, right? Because the coaches are all going to be different. Going to be different coaches. Like the coach could be like, you know what? I like what this goalie brings the most. Might not have this experience, but I've seen him play, and I like what he brings us.
Yeah, and it could come down to something as simple as who's the better puck handler, who's the better, talker out there on the ice, who can lead more, who's calmer in the pressure situations. There's all kinds of things that go into those decisions. I don't think Canada is going to be hurting in net.
No,
they'll be just fine. It would be nice to see Connor Ingram crack that. I would enjoy seeing him, especially if he got into a game. That would be fantastic.
Oh, certainly, especially after the start to the career that he had. Right, it was a little bit of a rough start, and then like he couldn't really make his quote breakthrough. And then when he finally gets on over to Arizona at the time, still a bit of a slightly rocky start, but then gets better and better and better to where he is now, getting ready for this season with Utah. I feel like the confidence is getting there.
Yeah, absolutely. Skate laces are crossed for Connor Ingram, and that everything continues to pick up. And I see no reason why he's not in the conversation. Absolutely.
Certainly. Any final thoughts before we close things off on this episode?
Nope. I'm just, I'll kind of end where we started, Robyn. I'm excited. We're creeping up on September. Things are getting closer now. We're going to start looking at the other teams in the division, in the conference. It's time to start doing some previews. It's time to start maybe, figuring out a little bit more of combos and units and all this stuff. And it's all coming together now. And I just absolutely cannot wait.
Oh, I cannot wait either. Again, we're coming closer and closer. And if you guys are continuing to look, maybe this is your first time listening to this show, for a place to just listen and learn more about the Utah Hockey Club, get excited, and just be a Utah Hockey Club fan, there is no other better place to listen to and to learn about the team than right here on the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast. If you did like what you heard today, don't leave us a review, like, comment, subscribe if you have yet to already. We're available everywhere you get your podcasts, including on YouTube. So be sure to go check us out over there and hit the notification bell. If you do, we'll get notified every time a new episode drops. Don't forget to also interact with us on social media. We are on Instagram, on Threads, and on X at LO_NHL Utah, and on TikTok at LO_Utah Hockey. I'm personally at Robyn_Leonio. Tom Callahan is at Callahan on Air. You can interact with us, ask the question. We might answer right back on a future episode of the show. But to get priority access to questions with us and text us one-on-one, be sure to join our text club. And be sure to be a part of this exclusive club that we're bringing to you guys at 801-760-9033. Once again, 801-760-9033. And just once again, you get access, text us one-on-one, exclusive content coming your way once the season begins. Lots of game notes, lots of other things. Definitely will be a place to be if you want to be a Utah Hockey Club die-hard fan. But that's going to be it for this episode once again. So hope you guys like what you heard, and we'll see you guys next time.